King Boom. Dirty Moors still attempt to infiltrate the order. Active Moors are truth and take it to the corners. Across highways, past hedges and through borders. Move on dirty Moors like broken down waters. Watch out for agents and provocateurs trying to get next to their heads with the doctor's cures. They never pay dues and don't pay dues, contradicting with King Alfred to give clues like news. Noble Drew Ali died from Palemore blues. Prophet saved him his money before the floor fell through, and that's true. Even though I don't have proof, selling memory tells me don't fall for spooks. Drop mental nukes, hanging from their own vine from the fig tree, looking up at them like Big B. No white flag or mercy for you fags. 5-point and pentagram is on our flag. Green, but not for cream. That dirty Moors took to throw off the balance of the Grand Treasury books, getting offers like high school ballers. Those that infiltrate are not Moors but robbers, robbing the people blind, deaf, dumb and crippled. They can't tear this up, not one drop or trickle. No matter how hard they try to perpetrate the fraud, dirty Moors always fall on their sword.
The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know Drew Ali started dropping it. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know Drew Ali started dropping it. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know Drew Ali started dropping it. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know Drew Ali started dropping it.
Me nah play with no so simmer and easy. From 19 how long, me see it's sleazy. So sick, it's measly and disgusting. Everyone stood there. The Moors did nothing when Drew was attacked. They took the covenant that they will protect him and have his back. Behind on dues by 4 months, going to kangaroo courts to perform stunts. Temples versus temples, lawsuits from inner fights. Not doing their job, 3,500 for birthright. Mufti Force left the post to be in Gucci stores with God. I thank Allah for the Sufi Moors and Buddhist Nagas. Moorish mic renaissance, not rap sagas. Confusion clearer, MC battle scar wearer. Moorish nationality declarer. Straighten out the crooked ways, rap conduct squarer.
The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know Drew Ali started dropping it. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know Drew Ali started dropping it. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know Drew Ali started dropping it. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know Drew Ali started dropping it.
Let me strip them down, I'm the bone bearer. Negro, black, colored minority, death preparer. Not the being, but the label attached. See me like Martin, going crazy, waving gats. Cause you call yourself black, that's a kick me sign on your life. Can't stab your enemy holding the blade of the knife. Numbskull MCs flow so dull that I'm pulling down Orishas like skull caps to torture the rapper, scissor sippers. Rapper, CD scratcher, insert ripper. Call me Jack and get slapped though. Admiral when I flow, major like macro. Don't spit on a cameraman like Pac will, but beat the case like Black Bill but no lawyer. Ask Jim Carrey, liars do nothing for you while they get rich and poor you. Make you follow magistrate orders that get the coke to snort from wood corners and blocks ghetto. All I see is rappers, dress codes, repetto, tight shirts, skinny jeans looking like heavy metal bands. I'm not Bay but L like Gred and Hands. I grab mics, no sweat in hands, with birthright brands. I don't worry about getting scanned.
The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know Drew Ali started dropping it. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know Drew Ali started dropping it. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know Drew Ali started dropping it. The problem is we started thinking like the colonists to know Drew Ali started dropping it.
What up?
Islam, peace and love, Moors. Peace and love to everyone tuned in and who will tune in after this broadcast is over and catch it in the archives. I am Mizraim Aleph L. You are tuned in to MHHS, Eyes Wide Open, Sons of Allah for January 2018 Gregorian calendar. And we are here on the summer solstice, and I'm here along with the Grand Sheik, Cujo Adwo L, Canaan Land Moors, Islam, Noble.
Islam, Moor. Peace and love to all the Moors, and happy solstice. And oh yeah, it's It's June, not January.
Right. Oh, did I say it was January? January? My fault, bro. I don't know. It's like, man, like when you, damn, thank you, bro. I don't know if I said January. That was definitely a mistake. But absolutely, it's June. I don't know. I was thinking about the polarities of life, and this is basically off of the time block that is commonly used. This is the 180 of January. So this is the halfway mark. This is the half. Basically, it's like halftime based off of that calendar. We know it's the second quarter based off of the natural calendar, which starts on March 21st. But excuse me, this is basically like the halfway point, and I say that to say that, you know, for these last two quarters of the Gregorian time block, for anybody who, you know, has to operate off of that time frame based off of conditions, you know, I hope that the first two quarters were great, and if not, you know, this is the point of turning it around. You know, basically, when we're at the solstice, it's like the sun in retrograde, and we were having this conversation. It just automatically leads us right into the conversation, because you and I spoke about this briefly, and we wanted to put this conversation on the floor for the listeners, for the observers, for the students, for the teachers, everybody, for the analysis. You know, when we talk about people going what they call crazy and the polarities of life, sometimes they get hit with this brand called bipolar. And when you think about it, is it a natural thing or is it something deeper? Because when we look at natural law, even like the time frame called the solstice, we see this aspect of bipolarity. Like, you know, they say it's a North Pole, South Pole, etc. We spoke on these things before, but it has specific underlying theme to the conversation we would like to have tonight. Because specifically when we give veneration and reverence to the solstice, and the sun being at a particular alignment with, you know, the highest point in the northern hemisphere, or what some people call the North Pole, and, you know, vice versa in the winter solstice, it's in alignment with the lowest point in the or in alignment with what we call the South Pole, etc. So is bipolarity a thing that's fixed in nature that we have to find an equilibrium or balance with, or is it a natural result of what Mikhail Sarian was saying about, you know, what they call insanity is the perfect reaction to an unnatural environment? And I say that because there's been a lot of revelations within these past 7 days. I know you have veneration for hip-hop, including, you know, Nas, and the fact that, you know, you had the song, you know, because people be like, oh, man, and, you know, we're not, quote-unquote, big on pop culture like that, but there's certain things that you see coming in through different streams of consciousness where you have to give reverence. And, you know, even with the song that we just played in the intro, with Nas, he was giving reverence to Noble Drew Ali in 2008. And I'll never forget that era, that time frame, and that feeling, you know, when a mainstream, I don't even want to say mainstream, but a well-known artist had dropped music that, you know, was giving credit to Noble Drew Ali. Not that it hasn't been done before that time, but just at that time, in that climate, it was like, yo, this is, we know we in different times now because music like this is dropping. And, you know, it was like a breath of fresh air. And then again, just within the past 7 days or so, you know, Nas came out with another album mentioning Moors on 2 different tracks. And I just thought that was unique in conjunction with the fact that Kanye West produced the album very well, but they had considered him crazy or bipolar, you know. And I was thinking on that note, I said, well, you know, when they had the particular listening party footage up, he seemed as if he was in his element, which brought me to the question of, is this bipolarity thing, something that can be healed through man knowing thyself? Because like Noble Drew Ali said, man is mind. I haven't been aware of personally meeting somebody with a severe case of that, but I do know that at one point or another, everybody's mood changes. Sometimes you feel good, sometimes you feel bad, sometimes you feel happy, sometimes you feel, overexcited. There's a lot of different human emotions. If you're not desensitized and on the zombie frequency, you can admit that in different situations you feel different types of ways. And different energies, negative, positive, or indifferent, make you feel different type of ways. So I was just wondering, seeing that and hearing, the music being one of the 7 liberal arts, I was wondering if man is mind, can a mind be healed simply by using its God-gifted attributes? Can it go deeper into depression if you don't be what you know? You have people who know how to make engines. You have people who know how to make fans. You have people who know how to make clothes. And this is what they know. This is what they know how to do. If they don't be what they quote unquote know, right, can that affect their mentality and happiness in life? And if that's the case, is Kanye really crazy? Because he seemed to be, back to him, the Kanye that we knew, being around a certain vibration that was, more or less informative, great. It was based in, on the science of the 7, you know what I mean, liberal arts. So, just to put that in perspective, can we really, see symptoms of actual healing in these sciences, right? Because it's still all Circle 7. Going back to even the logo that Nas has on his clothes now. Man must learn by signs and symbols. We see the symbology or the symboliography is heavily Moorish with, his new brand or whatnot. And, it just made me think on multiple levels, is it healing and using your God-gifted talents? And if you don't use your God-gifted talents, can you go more into what is called the sunken place, etc.? So I kind of wanted to start the conversation off on that note and, also leave room for any listeners who have any piece to speak on that subject to please, call in, speak your piece or your add-on or your perspective, however you would see it. But, yeah, that's what I wanted to start off with, because we know, as the lessons teach, that man is mind, not the body or the flesh, and this is what makes us divinely unique, is certain thought patterns. And thought patterns also being influenced by symbols or hieroglyphs or motifs, sigils, etc. And to see that this heavy usage is going on relative to Moors in these days, we could say, well, man, yeah, we've been knew he knew something. But to see people turning up at this particular point in time, basically at halftime, what can we expect going into the 3rd and 4th quarter? And, how does that resonate with the frequency that people have been exchanging and sharing and, exhibiting as far as Moorish science and Moorish consciousness goes? And not just because somebody's in the temple, that's not a shot at the temple, you know what I'm saying? You have people who know about Moors and they acknowledge being Moors. You can get into the frivolousness of, Moorish is not Moor or Moor is not Moorish, and you can't be a real Moor if you're not a Moorish American and all of that. Look, historically, we're known as Moors, right? Noble Drew Ali acknowledged us the same as Moors, Moorish Americans, etc. He said, think this over, you Moors. So we know we're Moors, and we're not going to let anybody, who just been enlightened within the past 5 years act as if they got the know-all, be-all and are going to disqualify people's nationality and birthrights based off of, well, you're not American, you're a Moor, or you're not a Moor, you're an American, and all of these meaning the same thing, essentially. So we know ourselves, and we know that there are other Moors waking up. So to see that, I don't even want to say again mainstream, because we're in the times now where, it's almost like CDs are irrelevant in the aspect, because mostly everything is going into the digital realm. You can hook your phone up. You can have a playlist, track list, whatever, hook your phone up right to the so-called car or the conveyance now, and have a digital playlist tracking or streaming or whatnot. So, in these times, though, the hard copies are always good. You always want that. But I'm just saying that the music is liberation and healing aspects. Do you think that could have an effect on what people call the bipolar mind? Example, we could go a little deeper than Nas and just say, well, just instruments alone. You could listen to the drums and it can make your heart beat, have a certain rhythm that it wasn't on before if you was in a real live cipher of drums or horns or saxophones or different natural instruments, including the piano. So, I don't want to go on for days like that, but I'll open the floor for you, Kujo, to, add on. What's your thoughts on that, bro? Do you think it's a healing in the 7 liberal arts, including geometry, which is math? What's your take on that, bro? Because I say that because he also had the pyramid. He also had the pyramid on the shirt, which is also, geometry. That's still math. That's still math, which is still relative to the 7, which is math. So with that, Islam Nova, what's your piece on that?
Well, I mean, first with regard to with the bipolar and Kanye and all that, I always likened, I never really gravitated toward, focusing on him. He makes good music, and I'll listen to some stuff that he put out because he just makes good music. You know what I mean? But early out, when he had his mouth shut, wired shut, I always looked at him like the blind man. That's why he could produce so good, because he lost one of his faculties. So everything else has to pick up to compensate for that one that's lost. So his hearing would have picked up. How he's viewing things would have picked up, just because he was absent of being able to talk. And then I know that from a brother that we know from back in the day who, same thing, mouth got wired shut, and his other senses compensated. That he would be doing almost supernatural stuff with his other senses. So I know that the whole thing, even though we're looking at the physical, mundane, the brain is doing certain stuff or whatever, there's a higher thing that's going on when you're dealing with the liberal arts, because those things are relative to the senses. You know what I mean? Like the 7 liberal arts are specific to the senses.
Right.
So, with is he bipolar or whatever like that? When you look at his track record from the jaw wired shut to today, right?
Mm-hmm.
As an individual, he's lived a roller coaster. Right. Being that he's lived that roller coaster, we know I know as an artist that your imagination is heightened when you're under fatigue, insomnia. ego, rage, which would allow you to appear to be not right in your head.
Right.
Not realizing that all these things are it's part of the creative process. If you go back and it's more frequent when you listen to older music that's, you know, on vinyl, so you can really get the sound, or on cassette or reel or whatever, and realize that every song that hit you was because of somebody's depression or happiness or fear, them just being other than who they're supposed to be. Which is why you have all these so-called artists with their alter egos or whatever. Every artist is bipolar. Forget Kanye. Every artist is nuts. Think ODB wasn't nuts? He said that he's Osiris.
Right.
Is he nuts? Right, and then when you look at the listening party, just like you said, being bombarded with the sigilmancy through being around Nas and creating this album where he's saying more in it, and then all the stuff is, you know, the Eye of Allah and pyramids and scimitars, and he's bringing cassettes back out. Like, it's a different. It's what people aren't used to, which shows their sickness. The listeners that forget, is Kanye bipolar? How about all these people out here who are going nuts because some guy got shot up in a car?
Right.
Like you're really that low on the vibrational polarity that a being, and again, go back to Drawley dropping these lessons. You're not supposed to be selfish when somebody dies or whatever. Where you please come back and all of that stuff or whatever like that. You're not supposed to do that. That's out of harmony. I'm coming from the perspective of, like, I'm convinced they know. Right? Like, I'm not guessing, do they know about Moors? You know, or he just put that in one line, in one song, so that doesn't mean nothing. All right, you stay there and you think that. Because, you know, I have gotten personal calls. I've gotten personal calls from people who are considered, you know, prominent in whatever it is that they're doing. And it's a reality that they are out here learning just like everybody else is learning. Just like somebody's trying to find herself, LeBron James trying to find himself. Just like somebody out here is trying to know who their ancient foremothers and forefathers are, you know, somebody else out there who these people look at, you know, Will Smith is out there, he's trying to find who the hell he is.
Right.
So don't be absent-minded thinking that they don't know. And I was saying that to say, like, if anybody listens to reggae music, they know who Sprague Benz is. Sprague Benz is the RVBey because Cujo put him onto Grand Chief Nature. And he went to the temple. He did the lecture, Grand Chief Nature RVBey at the temple. This is Sprague Benz. Put out a movie talking about immigration and all that stuff, about how he has a status and he's a Moor and all that. Independent movie. But, of course, you know, that never made big screen, so you're never going to know about that. Right? Granddaddy IU. Like, that's that's foundation hip hop. You people listening to stuff today, you think you know something because you know how to pop and lock or whatever. Well, Granddaddy IU knows he's a Moor. He knows he's a Moor so much that he's Great Seal. He's not Moor Science Temple Moor. He's Great Seal Moor. These people aren't guessing like how you people are guessing. Like we said, everybody knows that they got to get their salvation, and the only way that they're going to get that is by honoring their foremothers and forefathers. Unfortunately, they're in compromised positions where they can't really talk how they want to talk. They're going to put out little stuff for those who know. So those who know could know that, hey, those guys are on it too. It's not just us. Like, it doesn't have to be exposed. You know what I mean? Like, on the one away, I know for a fact that Nas knows Moors to the point where there's Moors in Nas's family.
Right.
Nas has a cousin who's a Moorish American.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, this is what I'm telling you. It's not assumption. I seen the pictures with Nas and the picture with the Moroccan flag in it. We know he knows.
Yeah.
And again, we give supreme honors for him to put it out. One, that he put out Noble Drew Ali because of who he is, because of the credibility that he has. For him to say that, and then you people are still playing around, then we know that it's freaking zombie land out here. And you better have your chainsaw, your pickaxe, or whatever.
Yeah.
Because the job is to take you out. All you people who think you know something. Because they want zombie land. That's all they can have. Nothing else is going to work right now. All they need is zombie land. And what did Nas and Kanye really do? What did they really do? They healed each other using Moorish science.
Right. Yeah.
Right, because remember, he's going through his BS with Khalees and $800 million a month for child support. So everybody has that BS that they're dealing with. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if, he's not on publishinfo.net, you know what I mean, studying from Brother Mario L. Bay's stuff. Because, he's the ghetto fellow, the Moor. Like, why wouldn't he be studying from other Moors like Moors do?
Exactly.
You think he's not going in, you think he's in Harvard and he's not going in Harvard library or whatever like that, pulling out stuff? You think he's just going there on some, to teach the Europeans about some hip-hop or whatever? You think he knows he's a Moor? If you ask any Moor out here, anybody that's an active Moor, if you ask them, hey, if I could put you in any city in the world or whatever, what's the first thing you're going to do? Moor's going to say, I'm going to go to the library. See what the hell these people got with regard to information. And remember, library are museums. Library is a park that's named after somebody, that they got monuments in there, whatever, with plaques on it saying stuff. Library is not just some place where you go and there's books in a shelf. Library is where you go to learn.
Exactly.
And the best teacher is life. Thank you. Sons of Allah. That's why it's Sons of Allah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a frequency. Ain't no different than, that's why Kanye had to be the one to produce this album. Couldn't be anybody else.
Right.
Remember in the stories of the so-called Greek mythology And they always have the so-called council of the elders and all this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize that mythology is not mythology. That's real. The Greeks got that stuff from other people who taught them.
Moabite specifically.
So
they got that.
So you have. So right now you have, like we talked about on Tuesday, people could F around all they want, but you have the number 1 to 5 on the list of top MCs. Just pick any from 1 to 5. Nas falls somewhere in there to everybody in the world. Nobody's going to have him past 5. Anybody who listens to hip-hop or whatever and says Nas is something past 5, he's not in the top 5, you're a clown.
Yeah.
You obviously don't listen to hip-hop. You obviously don't listen to hip-hop. Right. You're a clown if Nas is not 1 to 5. So this guy's 1 to 5. And we're not talking about he said more on an album. F that. He has on the clothes the circle 7 from the Holy Quran cover. There's nowhere else you see that circle with that 7 in it with the broken stuff. Nowhere else. Nobody else uses that but Moors.
Exactly.
In
That's
different
how you
variations, yeah. In different variations, yeah. It's other things as well. You know what I mean? For all the stupid people going to try to play. Like I'm saying, Moors created the circle 7. That's a sigil.
Right.
So it has many other forms. That's not just the only form of it. But he put this on the clothing to represent the release of this album that has 7 songs on it. Think it just has 7 songs on it for nothing? And again, going back, he had to get Crazy Kanye to produce it.
Yeah.
And only crazy Kanye is gonna go find some Turkish whatever to sample as the music for the song, where he's talking about the Moorish stuff.
Right.
And they're playing this out. We're letting people know. Like I said, Granddaddy, how you called me personally. There's not no fame or whatever like that. He's just another brother. He knows he's a Moor. He just happened to be somebody that, he's big time. And then if he knows, then I know other people must know if he knows. Just like we were saying, everybody's looking at, Nas put out the clothing line and the whatever, he's down with the Moors. What do you mean? Kanye also knows then. Whoever else is involved in, whoever else was at the studio session sitting there when he was doing the song or whatever, when they heard him do the Moor line, trust me, everybody looked at each other.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well you gotta understand.
When he came, right, from going to studio sessions with real MCs. When everybody's at the studio and we're chilling or whatever, everybody's on their meds, and the beat goes on, and whoever's session it is, he's going to the booth to go do his song or whatever. When they say the line, when they say the line of the song that makes you stop and everybody in the room is looking at each other. Like, yo, he just said that? Right, don't forget, right now, we're missing everything that he's saying in the booth because we're talking about this one line that he just said.
Yeah.
And then if he messes up, then, when he gets the take, then we can get over that line and go to the other lines in the song.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you look at it from artist perspective, it's really deep what's going on right now. This, like, to show you how on the frequency it is. So when the album came out, I was listening to it. This is last week Sunday. Last week Sunday, after we had the brunch, cleaning up. And I was at home cleaning up. And while I was cleaning up, I found that little, you know that thing with the cassettes or whatever, that you pull out the drawer and you got the cassettes in there? Found one of those hiding. I was like, oh, snap. I haven't seen this figure ever.
Right.
I'm going through it, I'm looking through all these cassettes and shit. I'm like, you know what, shit, I need to get a cassette player. I need to play some of these. Just to, you know, get that energy flowing again. That energy, cassette energy. And then Nas comes and said he's putting out a cassette of the album. There's a frequency right now. Remember the cassette coming out as that just came out. That stuff just got uploaded to the merchandise stuff like 2 days ago. Right? There's a frequency right now that Moorish science has reawakened. And anybody who's on Moorish science is on this frequency. Like once you're on the science of knowing that you're a Moor, once you're in the science of knowing that you're a Moor, then the sciences are going to work with you. Like don't be fooled and think Nas didn't hear the song where I sampled him for the chorus of the song. Don't think he never heard the song.
Right.
Just like only because I said Granddaddy IU in a song is why he. Now, what are the odds? Just like going back to the thing with the, you know, bipolar. Is it bipolar or is it, you know, something more divine? What are the odds that there's a song that I have that I name a bunch of artists in the song, and then one of the artists actually call me. Like, hey, man.
Right.
I heard you shout me out in your song, man. Like, freaking give thanks for that shit. People don't even know us. People don't even know.
Right.
Right? Like we're telling you.
Yeah.
Nas, there's a picture. There's a picture with Nas in the picture and the Moroccan flag in the picture.
Right.
And the other thing that we have to ask, all the great debaters, how come you're not debating Nas right now? All the great debaters who like to debate the Moors about we stole the Circle 7 from whoever and we stole whatever from the Masons and we stole from Aquarian Gospel and all that. How come you guys aren't going at Nas who's showing people, who's showing the world the same symbology that Moors show these people that they want to deny?
Right, right. Hey, you know another thing too, though?
I'm not seeing no F Nas videos coming out at all. But he's saying he's a Moor. He's repping Circle 7 and all that. But as soon as Moor say something, people have a problem. People want to defend something as soon as Moor say something.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Moor.
But think about this too. I mean, when we talk about man learning through signs and symbols, you know, Nas been basically saying this for a very long time without saying it. Because you could go back to the cover of the I Am album And you know what I mean? You see the headdress of the so-called Sphinx and the pharaohs, etc. So when you look at that cover, you know, that's what people will relate to, quote unquote, Egypt. But if they knew anything about Egypt, they will automatically know that that's directly correlated, interrelated, or is the Moorish heritage, history, etc. So, you know, not for nothing, I know it's a power in claiming that you are a Moor or even acknowledging it. But when we look at the signs and the symbols, like, even if, let's say, he didn't drop an album, but he just dropped the clothes with the sigils on it you was talking about, the Circle 7, you know, pyramid, the unity grid, all of this. You see that on paperwork. You see that on Moorish paperwork. You see that unity grid. You know, whether in or out the temple, you see that. So you already know what he's saying in that. But if he never said it or mentioned it in the song, will he not still be making that statement just by dropping the shirt and the clothing line with symbols on it like that, exactly, on his own merit? You know what I mean? That is the statement in itself. So it goes back again to the concept, too, of, you know, the deaf won't hear and the blind wouldn't see anyway. You know what I mean? He been putting it in your face, you know? And it's another thing. It's an attestation to the growth of human beings, because some of us be ahead of our times and people they can't even relate. Like, you know, Nas was definitely ahead of his time. You know, he was definitely ahead of his time. And I remember that, you know, one of the things that they tried to hold against him was a diss track where, and Jay-Z was like, yo, your flow is garbage, what you trying to kick knowledge, and then you look 15, 16 years later, you know, your bars don't matter if you're not speaking something about knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. You know? So it goes to show that certain artists are ahead of their time, and they've been telling you since back then. It's just they've seen something or marked a specific persona for a specific era that is here or is very soon to come. And I think that Nas was one of those, you know, because he had bars since, you know, track 1 of his first album, you know, and then you take it further on, you see the development. I know everything isn't satisfactory to everybody, but when you look at the whole track history, you can see how that same thought or that same seed has just reached higher potentials. That's really it. And I think that's like into a major part of life with all of us, you know. So, yeah, indeed, there's Moors that know and are in different industries, you know. So that's at the point where we have to appreciate that. But it's almost like the norm now. I mean, look at Yasin Bey, you know, Talib and Styles collabing, you know what I mean? Talib wasn't even a lot, but you know what I mean? They co-created it and produced some fire called The Seven. So, I mean, you see this throughout the real hip-hop artists. Pre-millennial, I think, you know, is what it's called. Anything after
Definitely
2000.
pre-millennial.
Yeah, this is pre-millennial lyricism. And it still exists today in those who were holding it down back then, as you can see. You know, as you can see, that's definitely what it is. It's just so many philosophies to life that go with it. Not to get off, but, you know, the song we were speaking of, he was speaking of Othello, and I know that a lot of times people don't know Moorish history beyond that, beyond Shakespeare, you know what I mean, or beyond what they heard about the Moors in Spain, etc. And it's not to dismiss that information, but it's like, you know, it definitely runs deeper than that. You know, it runs way deeper than that. So you can't tell me you thought you was a Negro, but you can't understand how you were Moor. You know, all of these, you know, historically have correlations to different classes of Moors, because all Moors wasn't considered Negroes. If you look at the, I believe it's volume 1 of Sex and Race, it's a picture in there, and they have, on the note of music, they have a band, a marching band from Morocco. And in the footnotes, I believe it's on page 197, And in the footnotes, it speaks about how none of these are classed as Negroes. They're all called Moors, you know, and it goes back. You look at the marching bands, even they had a mission and a purpose for their music because, you know, opposed to going through a gunshot echoing audio acoustic battlefield trying to scream orders, you know, people would get their orders from the sounds of the instruments, cease fire, start fire, you know what I mean, hold fire, etc. You could tell off the drum beat or off of the, you know, flute music or whatever it was, what the marching orders were or what the war orders were. And I'm not sitting here trying to advocate for war. I'm just showing you that music was used on many different levels. People used it for light arts and dark arts. So you could be listening to a certain beat, and if you are part of a specific society, you would know what the cadence of the beat and, you know, if you heard 3 whistles opposed to 2, what that meant, or 4 whistles opposed to 5, what that meant, and so on and so on. And you would know the instructions opposed to not being able to hear your, you know what I mean, your comrades or whatnot over gunshots or over, you know, the tormented screams of losing souls, etc. So I'm just saying, you got to understand music is not a light science, you know, specifically premillennial, you know, and I'm not knocking anything, you know, I can't listen to everything. And when I say that, I mean literally, I'll be like, yo, that's trash. Please, you know, turn that off if it's whack, you know what I'm saying? But I could definitely listen to some lyrics, bro, and good beats. And they got whole certain frequencies for different instructions, even like, you know, because that's why armies and navies, they had bands. They needed instructions over gunfire. And we could say, well, that's modern. Yeah, it is, but we could look at the ancient aspect of it too, you know. So it's like, what do you use these sciences for? I could get in the lab and, you know, say young homie sell that D or that dope or whatever, or I could tell them, you know, I ain't no house nigga, I be in the field, but I ain't a slave, I'm a king, and that's real. And you like, oh shit, it's a difference in the vibration, you know what I'm saying, of what the message is. So how do you use these arts for the upliftment of fallen humanity, opposed to just using them to use them? You know, and I think that's where the responsibility of the individual comes in as an artist of what your message is, you know. But I figured too that even with the song called Adam and Eve, it opens up another conversation based off of more science, because Noble Drew Ali was going in on, you know, Adam and Eve. And also, if you look at his philosophy about being manifested on the 6th day, which is why Friday basically is our holy day, you know, you could also make sure you pinpoint the 2 different stories in that creation theme, if you will. I didn't say theory, I said theme, because you have those who are manifested on the 6th day in Genesis 1, and then the second creation in Genesis 2, which means that there was 2 different creations that was accounted for. You know what I'm saying? And one was real early, and one matches with the philosophy Noble Drew Ali gave. But, you know, again, it goes to, in the 101s, he was saying, well, yeah, Adam and Eve, yeah, that's our family because we all have the same mother and father. Basically, we all have the same creator. But if man and God are one, in the last closest meeting places in the heart, who was the creator? You know, so it's just a lot to think about and philosophize on, if you will, with those subjects, you know. But yeah, I just give thanks for those who are getting the message out the best way they can, bro. You know, including yourself, because you have great theme music too. And hip hop, you know, I'm not taking nothing from it. So, you know, as an artist, I know you have even more a veneration for these people who bring it to the mic like that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just looking at it from the artist's perspective. You know what I mean? Not the listener. You know, because just like everything else, you know, it's really all about listening. You know, well, what are you listening with? You're listening with your ears. You're listening with your heart. You're listening, you know, like how is the sound hitting you? That's what, even when you were saying about certain beats. You know, when you listen to the beats on the album, there's not none of that BS that you're hearing today. You know, that synthetic sound, like you were hearing real sounds. You were able to appreciate hip hop because you already have in your mind what's the standard or the level that's supposed to be expected. You know, with as crazy as Kanye is, like production level, that album's 10 out of 10.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that.
There was no whack beat concepts on the album. Zero. Like
right.
Zero. Zero?
Right.
When was the last time you heard an album and there was that every beat was good? Every beat. And then the concept of the song on the beat just took it to a whole different level. You know?
Yeah.
The Cop Shot the Kid one. The Cop Shot the Kid was one of those ones.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know?
Yeah.
Right? It puts you in a different mind space. You know, an evolved mind space. As far as the genre, the hip hop genre. You know, that even though we might not say that it's mainstream, but compared to me, that's mainstream. And
right, I feel you.
If the message is in that, then we're definitely doing the good shit over here. If the message is in that, and like we're saying, been in that, we're just making more emphasis on it because they actually said more because, you know, when people say Noble Drew Ali, that's too much for people to digest. Why are they mentioning his name? You know what I mean?
Right.
But then it just makes sense. Well, you know, Common's from Chicago. Why wouldn't we know about Noble Drew Ali and put him in tracks?
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't we know? You know what I mean? And then why would you know, because of these things, you know, because of what influence people have, they would always do something or have something happen to take away from the attention that they're bringing to the Moors. Look at RVBey. He wasn't have no problems like that when he was most deaf.
Right.
Think back when he was most deaf. You tell me what kind of problems he had with these people. Like the problems he had when he was saying he's Bay. One of the most even slept on albums, Ecstatic, and he had Noble Drew Ali on that album. It's Picture. The song Picture
you know
was a convention picture. Like, you know. Go ahead, Moor.
Yeah, no, pardon me. One of my thoughts had slipped me. I was just gonna say, oh yeah. When you said what it is when he claimed to be Bay, you know, how he had more problems than he did, you know, being quote unquote most deaf. And you know, his music was still fire back then and now. But I realized this, that, you know, a lot of things that are going on with power plays and people, Europeans specifically, with their quote unquote Negro favorites and whatnot. They're covetous. They like to covet titles, and I think that it doesn't matter what the title is, whether it be title to land, whether it be, heavyweight titles like how they did our brethren Muhammad Ali, whether it be, your titles of nobility by birth, RVBey, Al, and Ali, how they covered those in the lodge, etc. I just see that they have a fetish for coveting titles that don't belong to them. So, you know what I'm saying? You can see why they would feel, I don't even want to say you can see why, but in no way justifying it. You see why they feel like, oh, no, we got to discourage you from that, because now you're tapping into the God frequency, which we was always trying to keep you away from. You know what I mean? This is why they had separated and had, degrees for sale with the lodge thing. You know what I mean? Because the secret has always been us. We taught them everything that they know, and in present day, they're getting a lot of technology concepts from Moor still, whether they're still in the concept, whether they're in the lab working with them, whatever it is, you can see that, they still getting ideas from more scientists. It's just crazy. Some of the technology advances that are made now is just crazy. But I wanted to say this because we started off the conversation. I know we're getting into the second hour. We started off the conversation with Kanye West as an example of, bipolarity and being on the solstice. We think about the poles, North Pole, South Pole, etc. And is this a concept we see based in nature? Now, I'm not saying Kanye is and has been totally in his quote-unquote right mind. If I was working around a bunch of people that I perceive personally as house niggas and they wasn't on my frequency, I would probably go crazy too. You know what I mean? Honestly, I probably would. I couldn't take it. I don't think I could take an environment like that where, you have a bunch of, what is commonly called house niggas. And I know we're not Negro, black, and colored, but to put in perspective the type of people I'm talking about, for a better word, I would go crazy with that. So, the scholar and I would say psychologist Mikhail Sarian said a long time ago, he said that insanity is the perfect reaction of the mind to an unnatural environment. And it had me thinking more so, well, if we're gods, do we stay unbroken no matter what environment we're in, or does the environment we're in actually shape and mold or affect who we are internally? Because I hate to use this as an example. You're not going to feel the same way about being in jail as you would feel about being on Miami Beach. The environments are they're two total different environments, which up lanes for totally different moods. But then at the same time, you could have somebody who's going to be, if they don't have the inner happiness, they're going to be miserable no matter where they're at on planet Earth. You know what I mean? They could be anywhere in the most beautiful environments, and if they don't have the inner peace, it wouldn't affect their mood anyway. So how do these things correlate, And going back to the blind man concept, when you use your sensory perception of sight and how this affects, what you're thinking and your environment and all of these things, it starts to take on a different aspect when you think about the psychology of it. And on that note of Kanye being quote unquote crazy, and again, I'm not vouching and saying he had all his marbles, and I'm not saying he didn't, because if man is mind and mind never forgets, you always know who you are. You might just be tampered with from an external environment to whereas you feel uncomfortable internally. I can't speak for him. I'm just saying that that indestructible atom of God that's in all of us, you know what I mean, can't be broken. It just can't be. But when he said this comment, we never really touched on this on this blog, on this channel at all. I don't believe we did, specifically as it relates to him. He said that slavery was a choice. And he was like, damn, man, you mean 400 years and it's all of y'all and y'all still slaves? People called him crazy for that. They did. They didn't agree. And they say he was crazy for that statement alone, among other things he said, you know. But when you look at it without emotions, like, he's actually right in a sense, because if you look at the historical records, there was two types of servitudes. That is specifically, you know, also one of them is still mentioned in the 13th Amendment, but it was voluntary servitude and involuntary servitude. Those was two classifications that served for a like purpose, right? So, excuse me, what people would think, because I was speaking with my cousin on this earlier today, you know, when they think slave, they think whip, chains, and shackles. And I was trying to tell them, like, slavery was deeper than that, right? Because if I whip you for not acting a certain way or anything like that, that's not necessarily slavery. That's abuse. That's abuse, right? So you could be a slave without physically being abused. That's a fact. You look at contracts that lock people into different deals where they don't get to reap the benefits of the fruit of their labor. You know what I mean? That's slave deals. Cents on the dollar for their artistry work. You know what I'm saying? And no compensation. Those are slave deals. So we have to distinguish first and foremost that abuse and slavery are not necessarily the same, though it has to take a certain mind state to actually effectuate those abuses, right? Because you have, and I'm not saying this is right, and I'm definitely not vouching for this, but you have some people who beat their spouses because they think they own them, right? Technically, their spouse is not a slave, right? But the abuse is the problem. So when we think whips and chains and shackles, we can't necessarily equate that with being a slave, because you have free people who were kidnapped, but it never made them slaves. They was just kidnapped. And likewise, because people were abused doesn't make them slaves. So slavery without the whips and the chains and the shackles is what we have to be aware of. So when this man said that it's a choice, you know what I'm saying? Some people can choose to sign over mostly everything about them, likeness, you know, creative attributes, creative manifestations, intellectual property, you know, and never see the benefit of it. Willingly, you know, that could be a choice, because that was something else we were speaking on about. People like, oh, I don't have to study, I don't have to read, you know, I don't need to know the law. You know, that's that Moorish stuff, and it's more like an excuse for their ignorance because, you know, 10, 15, 20 years later, they found out they signed a contract, which they didn't understand because they were ignorant at the time, that, you know, waived certain rights. And now they got to fight to get out of that and say, hey, look, it wasn't consensual. I could say that, yeah, it was some people who were voluntarily slaves in the sense of, or signed up for voluntary servitude, shall I say, in the sense of wanting to be quote-unquote friends and helpful and things of that nature, and they ended up just being voluntary servants, you know. But a servant is worthy of his hire, as it speaks of in the Circle 7, but an involuntary servant gets no compensation, no pecuniary views off of their works, unless they intended to put it out there with no pecuniary compensation in return. So, I mean, when he says that slavery is a choice, and, you know, in the 13th Amendment, it makes a classification, you know, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall be permitted unless on a punishment of a crime, meaning you have to be duly convicted. And not no color of law crime, like a real crime, right? So none of those two could go down, they call legally, without that being the initiating premise or initiating point for them to practice that on you. So when he says that it's an option, what's your thoughts on that, Moore? Do you think slavery is an option, or voluntary servitude for that matter? Because we know slaves are Slavics, so therefore we could really never be slaves. But the concept of how it's commonly used, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, with regard to the fact that it's Kanye saying it, and more than likely, when that was said, he was probably working on the Nas album. I would say he was studying Noble Drew Ali's literature, because Noble Drew Ali pretty much said slavery is a choice in divine warning by the prophet for the nations. When he told the Moors that, hey, if you cling to the names and principles that allude to slavery, then that's what you're going to get. Because, if you're clinging on something, that means you're desperately holding on to it. Now, Noble Drew Ali told that we should relieve ourselves of those names in order to get out of slavery. In order to not be slaves or enslaved or mentally enslaved, don't cling to the names that allude to slavery, which...
Hey, it's a real important statement, too, because he was on it.
Yeah.
If you ever look at the Negro Acts of Carolina, and specifically Section 4, it says that Negro is a word applied to quote-unquote slave Africans as distinguished from, the free inhabitants of Africa, such as Egyptians and Moors. Like, they're literally telling you in the Carolina Slave Acts or Negro Acts, etc. And, when he was coming in the 1900s, people were still holding those badges of slavery really tight to their vest. So it was an imperative message when he was saying that, to cling to the names and principles. This is, again, why, it's important not to just, read a book and be like, oh, yeah, well, black people are Moors, and, well, Moors are black people. Like, no, there's a distinguishment in the classification of these people, again, going back to Nature Knows, Sex and Race. And I believe it's volume 1, if not, it's volume 3, page 197. And in there it says, none of these are Negroes. They're all called Moors, meaning free inhabitants of Africa, etc. And that didn't exclude here in North America, because the colonial law was pretty much the same around the globe. So I didn't want to cut your wisdom, but to emphasize that, yeah, this was stuff that was on the books. Pre-Constitution, this was on the books. Even with the Sundry Free Moors Act, you know what I'm saying? Why it was important for them in that same area of Carolina to make the exclusive distinguishment, we're not Negroes. And keeping in mind that Negro and black mean the same exact thing. So, present day, if we still in that old, I don't even want to say old, it's kind of like a modern construction of forming different identities for people, or artificial identities, in the law of evidence with the whole Negro, black, colored thing. His statement wasn't light at that time. People knew that. You know what I'm saying? So when the Sundry Free Moors was saying, we are not like them niggas, like Django did, like it wasn't to be derogatory, but literally they was making a distinguishment between their lives and the lives of people who look like them but was not like them. They were not the same. They were not the same as far as mentality goes, as far as aura and energy goes. In that regard, you know, how they accepted or didn't accept who they were. That's a fact. That is a fact. Because even when it comes down to being voluntary, right? I say this, they dropped the jewel because I don't want to sound crazy like I'm sitting here saying people wasn't put into involuntary servitude. But what I'm saying is like the example they gave on Django, right? When the European Mr. Candy asked Steven, who Samuel Jackson was playing, and he asked him, he said, yo, your father was a barber, and he cut my father with a straight razor every day. You know what I'm saying? All he had to do was slit his throat. Why didn't he do it? Why? I'm not suggesting murder, but if it was that bad, if they wasn't consenting, how would he have that opportunity? If somebody is suppressing your life and you have the chance to get out of that every day, what is it about you that you wouldn't do it? I'm not trying to suggest people murder, but is it an acceptance? Is it an agreement? Was it, acquiescence? What was it that stopped, Stephen's father from getting the slave master's father out the way to the point he trusted him enough to have a razor around his neck? Was that an agreement? You feel me? I'm just saying, I don't know, man. I know it's not a voluntary thing for everybody. I'm just saying that it does exist, the difference between voluntary and involuntary servitude. There is a distinguishment. That is facts.
No doubt. And even with what you're saying too, the concept of the involuntary and the voluntary. Like, yeah, we can say that, these atrocious actions happen to these melanated people. But that's not part of the quote unquote slave story. That's after. The main point of the slave story is people came over here on some ship. No stuff was going on over here to people. They did stuff to Buffalo and all that. So it ain't like you don't know what these people are about over here.
Right.
We know what actions took place when they got here.
Yeah.
And like Moors always say, people who were so-called in slavery were really prisoners of war.
Yeah.
Which takes away which gets rid of the whole concept of whether it was involuntary or even if it was servitude. Because it might have been that later. It might have turned into servitude by the time, they created the story. But prior to that, these are prisoner of war people.
Right. That is facts. There you go.
So, yeah, slavery is voluntary. Being a prisoner of war is not voluntary. You're going to acquiesce if you're a prisoner of war.
Yeah.
Because it's beyond threats, duress, and coercion when you're a prisoner of war.
Right.
And this is also part of the mindset that Moors have to look at these people that are oppressing us as trying to assume the position of that they're still in this authoritative, hierarchical, they're superior, we're inferior. Now, once we have knowledge of self, we're not inferior anymore. I don't care how superior somebody claims they are. This is, again, going back to Django. Is it, hey, you want to see something? Let me show you slaves something. They say, hey, you want to see something? Let me show you slaves something. 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 Let me show you slaves someth Let me show you what you can do with knowing who you are.
Right.
Right? Even with the one in the end, open the cage for them to get out. These dudes sitting there, looking at him right away on a horse. You tell me slavery is not voluntary? Because you have to choose to have your mind in that place to not walk through the open door and be free. You're sitting there.
Mm.
No different than getting the shaving razor at the neck, and you're not cutting the throat. What do you mean you're not cutting the throat? I thought this stuff is bad or whatever.
Right. Right.
Like how is it that everybody, there's 20 of us standing around watching Jim Bob get beat or whatever by one European, and we're just standing there?
Yeah.
Nobody said so a rock or something like that hit him in the back and everybody jump on him?
Right. Right.
And that's why I can't go with the voluntary, our people were slaves. We just sit there and let European tear people apart by horses and stuff like that.
Right.
Like nobody said when they saw that they were running, charging with the cutlass, getting shot up or whatever. Everybody just sat back like, oh well, we're not gonna do nothing because they might do that to us or whatever. So I'm not gonna. But when you really look at it, that's the same stuff today that we're dealing with. That we're out here talking about exercising our rights and being free people. And you have Negroes who look just like us, trying to convince people that, nah, you don't want to be one of those type of Moors. You don't want to be a street Moor. You don't want to be a Moor that wears a fez outside of a temple and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. You want to be the goody two-shoes Moor. You want to be the Moor that, pays your taxes and never fight anything. If these guys say, do something, you just do it because, Noble Drew Ali said we're a nation within a nation or whatever. Forget all that.
Hey, you know what? It's funny you mentioned that about the taxes thing. When we paid a visit to Ellis Island, they had a lot of history laid out, which shows the origin of how a lot of these corporations operate today. Specifically, the fact that if you watch the video I put up with Blue called Blue Flames Part 2. I had some clips in there from when we visited Ellis Island, right? And one of the things they were talking about was that they made it, what was a form of legalized slavery was that Native Americans had to give an annual report of the income that they made. And I'm like, well, this sounds just like the IRS type of thing. You know what I'm saying? They got to give an annual report of the income that they made. But this is where the distinguishment came in at, because they said that it was a form of legalized slavery, but that it's still a form of legalized slavery. And I'm like, well, goddamn, how can slavery be legal or legalized? Either it's legal or it's not. And then it goes back to the lesson that it's a difference between legal and lawful. It is a big difference. So anybody, who's talking crazy is specifically those in the temple, and I'm not taking a shot at the institution itself. I'm talking about those present day who are acting holier than thou, because Moors outside of the temple have this history and have been taught this history, unlike how it's not being taught, in most institutions today. They get that, and they look down on them. But I'm like, you can't be for Noble Drew Ali and not understand taking that particular stance. And the reason why is because Noble Drew Ali was for freedom. So whether slavery was legalized, illegalized, if it was lawful, unlawful, you can't support anything contrary to freedom if you claim that you're representing or, proliferating the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, even if it's quote unquote legal. Like, legal and lawful are not the same. Because legalized slavery doesn't even sound right. You understand? Like, but this is what they're saying on the plaque, that it's a form of legalized slavery, and that it was still a form of legalized slavery. So everything that's legal doesn't make it right. Everything that's legalized doesn't put it in a perspective where, oh yeah, that's the way we ought live. Like, because anytime you can, coexist with slavery being legalized in any form that it's in, at that particular point, you definitely don't represent the prophets of the principles of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. You know what I mean? Specifically when he was talking about freedom. And we could give visual examples of Moor saying this, speaking down on the load of your Moors. You know what I'm saying? So it's like this external thing, just because somebody puts on certain regalia does not mean, and they scream and name drop Noble Drew Ali, it does not mean that they are about the teachings of Noble Drew Ali. It doesn't mean anything like RVBey publications is wrong for, making this information available to analyze for yourself, you know what I'm saying? And in that endeavor, because this is at national landmarks in America. This is the history they're giving you. You know what I'm saying? But certain things you're not going to learn from reading the book. You have to get out in the field. Case in point, we went to the Berkeley plantation, right? And you was talking about a certain frequency that guides you to learn certain things. You know what I'm saying? But if you looked at that video and you see how the timestamps, how it's like a swap on each side, you don't learn that from reading a book in the house. Like, you got to get out in the field to see information like that and then put it in the book. You feel me? So everything is not going to be taught at the temple. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to get the whole truth, because the years was 1928 on one side, and on the other side it was 1298 on the plantation. And on one side it was obviously the face, the ancestral energy at work, because 1928 is a very historical year for Moors. You know that. We know what Noble Drew Ali did in 1928. You understand? And before that. But the specific timeline for it to say that, and then on the other side, 1298, that's not a happenstance. You know what I'm saying? But everything you don't learn in the building. So, yeah, there's a reason why, true pedantic students take trips, field trips. You understand? And that's basically what it boils down to, is like, look, there's no one place where you're going to learn everything, right? So you have to get out in the world and really analyze. You know what I mean? Because I'm telling you, that's not you're not going to learn that or in the Moor Science Temple of America, and that's not a slight. This is specifically why Noble Drew Ali gave the instruction and was like, look, go out on the hedges and the highways. You have to hit the field. If you're going to go out on his word. Or just be a follower in the building forever. It's your choice, you know what I'm saying? But the best thing is to see it for yourselves and examining not just one spot. I don't mean everybody, go to the Berkeley plantation. I mean, hit these historical spots up. They're out there. You know what I mean? If you want to learn about this information, because it's not like the European is lying. You know what I mean? You go up in their environment, they'll tell you, this particular county was established, in the 1900s. This is the spot where lynchings used to take place. They don't lie about this stuff. They don't. They do not. You know what I mean? You could go to certain county sheriff's web pages and they're telling you the history about the courthouse, and they used to hang people in front of the old courthouse and shit like that. They're not lying, yo. They're not. It's just we're not studying, and some of us have been so voluntarily in the mental slavery that we push that contrary to what Noble Drew Ali said about the mental slavery, about the fact he was for freedom, about the fact that, we're not supposed to cling to the names or principles that delude to slavery. And yeah, here we are, 2018. Some of us are doing that in his name. That's crazy. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. You know what I mean? When they say Kanye was crazy, that is crazy, bro. With that, I yield the floor for now.
How's the call log looking?
Islam, it's pretty decent. We had a caller that had their hand up from the beginning, ab initio. So what we're gonna do is take who has had their hand up ab initio and see what's going on. All right. So caller 513-413. You're live on the air. Are you with us? Still? Caller 513-413. All right. Well, we thank you for calling in and putting your hand up from the beginning. But we'll check back with you. Thank you for tuning in and calling in. All right. Let's go to the next caller. All right. Caller 313-702. You're live on the air. Are you with us?
Yes, I am. Greetings. Can you hear me?
Indeed, we can hear you.
I just had a quick question. I've been listening for, I guess, the last year or so. I've been studying since 2011, and I learn something new each and every day. I am out of the Detroit territory area, and I am having some issues on trying to kind of link up with some people out here. I wanted to know, is there an email or a number that I could maybe contact you, Cujo, at offline, so we could I can ask you some more specific questions?
Yeah, it's Canaan Land Guide, CANAANLAND Guide at gmail.com.
All right.
I'll try.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. No worries, man.
Now,
just send me an email and I'll call you. I'll call you tomorrow sometime.
All right, will do. And peace and greetings. Thank you.
All right, peace. Cool. So that's cool. Call us 682-360. You're live on the air. Are you with us?
Yeah, it's wrong.
Peace, Moor.
Yeah, I've been studying for a little bit, and I've just been trying to analyze everything, and I went into the 101s, and I understand that, this is a corporation. The United States is a corporation. All the states are corporations, and I get that, when they say state of, it's definitely a corporation. But when I was looking at the 101s yesterday, I just wanted to get y'all opinion on it. When Noble Drew Ali say he was born in the state of, he was born in South Carolina, was he talking about the territory, or was he referencing maybe he was like us at one point in time, thinking that we was born in in the state, or what was his reasoning for that? That was just been a question in my mind, you know. I just wanted to get another opinion on it.
If Cujo, you could give yours first if you would like. I'd also like to add on to that as well.
Because I know that. Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's all good. So it was question 11. Where was Noble Drew Ali born? In the state of North Carolina, 1886.
Yeah.
Now, if we are looking at it with new minds, then, you know, there should be many red flags going off with that statement, right? Which is part of the additional laws where man has to use his own 5 senses, which is also in this, right?
Yeah.
When you go to the back of the 101 questionnaire and you go to Act 5, all members must promptly attend their meetings and send their children to Sunday school. And the teacher must confirm himself to the questionnaire, which is this right here, and let every member exercise his 5 senses who is able to do so, because out from your Sunday school comes the guiders of the nation. So as a grand sheik teaching Moors in this day and age, using Noble Drew Ali's information, that's where Moors' mind should be going, how you're talking. Because it opened up the discussion as to, you know, what is state of North Carolina? What is North Carolina? Is there something before North Carolina? Right? Is there a difference between state of North Carolina and just North Carolina by itself? You know, if we're talking about 1866, are we even talking about this idea of state of, even though state of is said? You know what I mean? It's just like when they say, when he says American citizen, but he's not really talking about citizens of a corpse when he says American citizens, even though he's saying citizens, not national. Right? So, you know, like when I look at the questionnaire, I always look at the questionnaire as leading you to study further, because you know, like, because when you go through the questionnaire and you have this question and one word answer, that's supposed to make you study some more, because there's no way that the answer is one word.
Yeah.
Like if somebody asks you questions and your answer is just yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, that's all your answers are, those people don't know how to ask questions.
Right.
Right?
That's
and
right.
And remember that these questions being asked is from Noble Drew Ali to you. These questions are being asked from Noble Drew Ali to you. So if we say, question 1, who made you? And you say Allah, then either you came from the Creator or you came from your mom. Should be the mindset. Not we came from Allah because of some religious whatever and we're Muslim and whatever. That's not even, like, if Allah made you, you either came from the Creator or your mom. So both of them are the same thing, feminine. Right? All right. So it's open to interpretation, but only if you're studying. It's not open to blind interpretation.
Exactly.
You know, and again, this is why he made it that exact. That's why he made it that simple, because the thinking's supposed to be on us, not him. He already got this info. But just like the prophets before him, you know, the whole point is to get us to thinking so we can save ourselves, just like how he saved himself. He's Cherokee. He never called himself Cherokee. He said, I'm Moorish American. Forget all the Cherokee and all that stuff there. I don't know what the hell none of that is.
Actually, Cherokee is very modern, bro. If you study Cherokee history, and I have been since October, if you really look at that, they'll always tell you there was a civilization in what they call North, South Carolina, etc., that is pre-Cherokee. And they're not talking about any type of Paleo Indians. You know what I'm saying? There's pre-Cherokee history, which leads you right back to Moors. Cherokee is a modern tribal appellation, you know, for a Moorish family, because you have to remember that what they call Africa today was directly connected to that area of what you call North, South Carolina, etc. And again, when you look in the 101s, it says, even though it says he was born in the state of North Carolina, you know what I mean? That statement, like, let's say he did say that, right? I don't think he said that. Just like I don't think he said that we're citizens of the USA. It's been admitted that that was changed, etc., or came at a later time, because it's totally contrary to what his divine warning was with the divine warning, and, you know, heeding people to not utilize the 14th Amendment, because it is not necessary for the salvation of the people, of his people and the citizens. But okay, let's go with the fact that he said that he was born in the state of North Carolina, right? If you look at the 101s, it's giving you information in degrees. So there's a question in there that asks, you know, what is his nationality? And the answer is Moorish American. You know what I mean? And then they ask, what is yours, right? And then the question is, why is it yours, basically? Why are you Moorish American? Because you're descendants of Morocco, born in America. So right there, if you talk about his birthplace, you have to acknowledge America, which is a superior claim than the state of North Carolina or the United States. Because keep in mind, Noble Drew Ali established the Moor Science Temple of America, right? Let's, you know, in that vein, it was a Moor Science Temple of America established, which is a total different jurisdiction than the Moor Science Temple of the United States. He didn't establish, you know, a Moor Science Temple of the United States. He did not establish a Moor Science Temple of North Carolina. You know what I'm saying? His establishment was Moor Science Temple of America. These are all totally different jurisdictions. Not even Moor Science Temple of the United States of America. He didn't establish that. He was specific in what he established, right? So if Moor Science Temple of America, and you're descendants of you're Moorish Americans, because you're descendants of Moroccans born in America, right? Exactly. You know what I mean? So keep in mind, though, those Moroccans that you descend from were once attached to this land. The land that they call the Moroccan Kingdom today was once attached to America. And he speaks of this science when he talks about the great earthquake that caused the Great Atlantic Ocean. People think it's a game. I'm like, did you not see what was happening in Hawaii? That was something light. That was light. But it's splitting the land over there. It's splitting the earth. People's yards is splitting in half. You think that over a period of time, it's not gonna drift away? Well, the same thing already happened on a large scale. On the larger scale, when you talk about the evolution and the history of the planet Earth. So those Moroccans that you descend from are not some foreigners that, you know, was solely and strictly in Africa, you know, and always have been like that. That's a falsehood. Those same Moroccans there were attached to the land here. And that's why Moorish American or Moor, being a Moor predates actually being a Cherokee. Cherokee is modern American history. I wouldn't even call it necessarily American history. I would call that United States history, honestly. You know what I mean? Because there's pre-Cherokee civilizations that are directly linked to Moors. And I'm not saying that from a modern perspective, because today you have Europeans who are talking about they Cherokee. I'm dead serious. Like, you could, somebody pale as snow will tell you that they're part Cherokee. You know what I'm saying? They start talking about how many crossbreeds they're mixed with. They'll tell you, yeah, well, I'm Italian, Irish, and part Native American. Like, how that happened? You know what I mean? Who's your mother and who's your father? You know what I mean? How many bloodlines you got? And I'm not saying that amalgamation is not practical, but they don't even start. I mean, you know, it's just interesting. So I say that to say that taking you through degrees, he took you basically 360 or 100% and then left you on one, which is why it's the 101s, because 360 degrees and 100% in mathematics are definitely equal. So he took you there and plus one more degree. It's up to you to think your way through that of what he was saying, though the answer seems simple. You know, so in one breath where it's saying he was born in the state of North Carolina, but then he tells you his nationality, and then he tells you why that's his nationality. You know, he didn't say because he's Moorish American, because he's descendants of Moroccans from Africa. Like, he didn't say that. You know what I'm saying? He didn't say he's Moorish American because he's descendants of Moroccans that was born in Africa or Asia or anywhere else. He said, because I'm born in America, basically, or Al Morocco, etc. And that does not mean United States. Let's be clear on that as far as the territorial jurisdiction, because Mexico is America. Brazil is America. So-called Canada, or what you know as Canaan land, all of this is America. He's saying that basically I was born in the Western Hemisphere that we know as America. And that's really it. So the answers are all in there. You just can't stay stuck on one. You have to really consider the 101, you know, the plus or the 360 plus one, you know. And I would say that might be a way that you could perceive that, where you actually get the total message of what he was saying.
Right.
To add on too, that one more thing to add on with the 101 is also look at it like in school. Math 101 is first level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're getting first level. There obviously has to be more stuff. Noble Drew Ali can't be the prophet and then he just brought us first level and that's it.
Right.
Like how you see these people play around with it, like, you know, oh yeah, study your 101, and then they're sitting there and for 50 years they're repeating the same stuff, same question, same answer. Nobody's not putting their hand up saying, hey, hold on a second. How come it says state of or whatever when state of is supposed to be a corporation and all that? Nobody's not questioning anything? People just playing parrot with Noble Drew Ali stuff? You know that a game's being played by the people who got past 101 into the other degrees. And they realize that that's the game. The game is keep people in the basic. Once you keep them in, you know, it's like what they say. You know, once you don't teach the man how to fish, then you got him. He'll be buying fish burgers forever.
Yeah.
They might even get to the point where you're not even putting fish in it anymore. You're not even going fishing. But there's fish burgers.
Right.
Right? And everybody's happy because they got their fish burger. You know, don't be the happy guy with the fish burger. You know, and honors to you too for even bringing up one of those ones, because there's Moors that, you know, that are in the temple right now that have that question, but they won't bring it up because, you know, they don't want to look like they're going against a prophet or whatever when Doing that means you're thinking, which is what Noble Drew Ali said to do.
Yeah.
All right.
So how are you going against the Prophet because you're questioning the Grand Sheikh about some BS he's telling you about, you know, the lower self and the higher self, you know, are not only what Noble Drew Ali said in the whatever. There's this book and that book and that book, and there's these multiplicity of books that could teach you about the lower self and the higher self. But you can't read those books because Noble Drew Ali didn't bring those. You just have to read what he read, what he showed you in the Quran about the lower self and higher self, and that's it. And you're listening to him? Crazy. Playing yourself. Obviously not thinking, which is going against the Prophet. Said to think.
So you can free yourself.
He made many references that more should be thinkers. More should be, you know, using the knowledge that they have. Not just have the knowledge just because you can have it, but not do anything with it.
Right.
Yeah. I question a lot, you know what I'm saying? Because I believe, like, well, I know that, you know, if you can't question things, then you're never going to grow, you know? So I think sometimes we don't want to look unstudied, or, you know, by the questions that we ask make us seem like we not studying or something. But in reality, we're just trying to analyze it, break it down fully so it resonates with us and our soul, you know. So if I ever ask too many questions, you know, it's just me trying to analyze it. It's not that I don't know that, you know, the United States was created with the association, 1774. You know, I went back and I read all that, you know, so I know how he can't be really born in the state. But to my conclusion, I'm just thinking like the 101 is a beginner. Maybe he's trying to, because, you know, most beginners believe that. So when you going through, you know, you're going through it with somebody and you're trying to teach them, if you put yourself at a higher pedestal than that person, they're not going to really get what you're saying. So maybe he had to, you know, like Miz was saying, do it in degrees. You know what I'm saying? So people who beginning can relate. And then I'm going to take you, you know, to a higher degree. But
exactly,
in order for that to be done, you have to ask questions, and the ego has to be thrown away in order to, you know, actually understand why this person is asking this question. So I think that's, you know, my piece on that. And, yeah.
And even with regard to that, even the people who are asking the question, they have to also suppress the ego when they don't get the answer.
Right.
Because people might not get the answer and then think people are holding back stuff from them and, oh, they're too busy to talk with the Moors and all that type of stuff. When, yeah, maybe somebody might be too busy to build with you today. You know, maybe they got a week of stuff going on that, you know what I'm saying, they're not talking to anybody, not even their own immediate family they're not talking to right now. So, you know, so it goes both ways. You know, it goes both ways.
We're all human.
With everything. It goes both ways with everything. We're all human. Everybody has their stuff that they're dealing with. You know what I mean?
Right.
But and then you know, another thing with the questions is, you know, the people who are asking questions should be a example for those who don't ask questions, that it's all right to ask questions.
Right.
Because
yeah.
It's important for questions to be asked especially by people who are coming in with their eyes wide open, to certain people who are claiming that they're some authority or they have some type of knowledge. Because there's Moors who I deal with just in real conversation that I would put to debate some of these people who say they want to debate Taj and they want to debate Raz and they got to prove this and that about Moors. There's just Moors out here who nobody knows. That I'll put them Moors to go debate some of these people to show how incompetent they are just because.
Right.
Not all these people who ask questions are neophyte. Just like you're saying, some people are asking questions because they're actually refining themselves.
Yeah.
They're asking questions to see where they're at. That's just how, that's just how they measure. Some people measure by doing stuff and getting their ass kicked. They say, okay, can't do that. Let's try something else. Well, I didn't get my ass kicked this time, so I guess that's the way that we're supposed to do this. Right?
I was about to head. The wire.
Facts, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely feel free to ask any questions. If we have any insight, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, we will share that. If we don't know, we'll do the research and we'll talk about it. Yeah, but when it comes to this more science, we definitely have some information and insight to share, and it's always great to ask questions. I'm glad you brought that up because I was having this conversation yesterday. Somebody came to the class trying to antagonize, they should be doing it like this and we should be getting grants and all of this. And I'm like, well, look, if you think you know a better way, let me see you do something. What have you done? You know what I mean? Don't question me about what any teacher has done or hasn't done. What have you done? If you sit here and you say this is how it should be done, how it could be done, no disrespect, but you 40 plus and you saying this, and not just that you have ideas, you're downing others while you're doing it. I'm saying show me that you have a 10-year dedication to anything, like even if it's not just the temple or more, like do you have 10 years dedicated to anything? Because I could point out Moors that have 10 years dedicated to whatever their craft was, whether that be doing classes every week, every month, whatever it is. We talking 10 years dedication and uplifting many people in the process. So for you to come on the scene in 2-3 years and act like everybody else got it wrong and you just coming out the cave, and when I say that, coming out of darkness, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Don't sit there and try to antagonize people. And I'm not speaking about anybody who's on this line specifically right now. I'm speaking of a conversation I had last night. I'm like, you're not going to sit here and have that conversation with me because I haven't seen you put in work. You came around looking for a babysitter. I don't know you to put in any work. You know what I mean? So your critique, everybody's entitled to that, but you can't talk that with me. Because, you know what I'm saying? The 10 years dedication that I've seen from people that I've seen has uplifted the lives of many in real life, like literally in the flesh. You know what I'm saying? So always feel free to ask your questions. You know what I mean? Have your curiosities, your inquisitive mind. But also, you know what I mean? Keep in mind to keep yourself humble, because here we are 100+ years later from when Noble Drew Ali established the old Canaanite temple, and you still got people talking down on him like he didn't have that remedy. He had that remedy at that time, and for future reference, he had it. And to this day, there's people who won't give him his props. So we're not worried about the naysayers in that regard. Arrogance and ignorance is never justified. So always ask your questions, bro. Or anybody listening, ask your questions. And if somebody doesn't know, or you feel like you have a better answer, do your studies and make a presentation. But, don't diss anybody on the way, because, You know, you'll never hear me like this El Hajj Malik El Shabazz because, you know, I think Noble Drew Ali did it better. You know what I'm saying? Or vice versa.
Right.
This Noble Drew Ali because I think El Hajj Malik El Shabazz did it better. I wouldn't ever do that because I've learned wisdom from all of these people. You understand? So even people down to MLK, they won't, you know, it's discrepancies and, you know, disdains with him. But you can't tell me he didn't say something that resonated with you. Even if it was just his comment that longevity has its place, something he said had to resonate with you. It had to be something. You know what I mean? So when we deal with the more science of looking for the good in others first, you know what I mean, and giving them the best in you, then you start to be able to say, okay, I see how all of this gels. You know what I mean? Even down to Marcus Garvey, we could say, well, as Moors, we don't agree with the Negro term, but what his nationality plan was, yo, that is 1,000,000% official. You know what I mean? When you understand who you are as a Moor. So it's like you just got to be able to put the puzzle pieces together, you know, and that's. But I just want to say this, for all of those listening via the internet, we will be going offline in about 1 minute, and you can go back and listen to the archive for this last hour on MHHSblogtalkradio.com, or you can also go to the YouTube page of our brethren Najib L and listen to this archive at a later date on his YouTube page. But we thank you all for tuning in and listening. We're not done yet. We still have an hour left. And based off the callers in the queue, we'll see how long we go with this last hour. All right? So, my noble brethren, I just want to say thank you for asking your question and opening up a conversation that was needed to be had relative to, as says Noble Drew Ali was born in the state of North Carolina and was the answer to trump the falsehood provided in those same 101s. I think so. You know, so, yeah, before we yield the floor on you, is there anything else you want to say, Cujo? You want to add anything on before we go to the next caller?
No, more. Just to tell them more, give thanks for calling in with this question. And everybody else who calls in or will call in, we appreciate being able to have answers for people. If we don't have answers, at least we could lead you somewhere where you can seek those answers out for yourself. I yield the floor.
I just want to say before I go, man, I appreciate everything y'all do. NIE-wise, it takes a lot of time to do these things each and every week. You know what I'm saying? And I don't even believe that y'all getting financed for it. You know what I'm saying? So just right there is a deed that speaks a lot. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate everything that y'all do. You know, y'all keep doing what y'all doing in my highest honors. Peace and love.
Indeed. Peace and love, Noble. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace and love, Moore.
Indeed. All right, that being said, we're going to go to the next caller 470-505. Peace. Live on with
Islam, Moore.
Islam.
Peace,
Islam, GS. It's Amir Sharif L calling from Al Maghrib, Al-Aqsa. I'm just calling in to say what's up to y'all fellas, and most definitely peace to y'all, man. Y'all have sparked a lot of Moors out here, man. I got a chance to build with a lot of brothers, meet a lot of brothers. I met the brother Najib in person, for sure. That's my brother, and we build all the time. Got a chance to meet brother RVBey and brother Inyan Tuckerberg. Like, me and these Moors build on a daily basis, thanks to you, GS, and all the Canaan Moors doing what y'all do on the on the regular. We took basically like y'all theme, the way y'all rock out building and everything, we took that to the phone lines. Like, we on the phone line from 8 to 12 hours every day building, making sure all the Moor scimitars sharp. Like, not going for none of these processes, really not even really paying attention to it, not even thinking about it. people got to get back to thinking right. That's what I think anyway. That's my opinion. Like nobody not really using their own, like their own mind. They looking at what somebody else doing, worried about everything other than what the prophet was talking about. Like he told us to enforce the Constitution. I don't remember nothing about an EIN number, nothing like that in that. But that's what everybody up to. I'm not getting it. I'm not getting how the brothers out here soaking in their ego, talking to our mothers ridiculously. Oh, bruh, they got to stop. Ain't no way none of these men should be calling in, talking to N.E. or Mother Roz in no kind of disrespectful manner. That got to stop, like, completely. The slander got to stop. And me, I know we ain't supposed to really put hands on people, most definitely, but it got to come a time. It's like if you keep letting somebody do something, they're going to continue to do it. You know what I mean? They're going to continue to do it, but not necessarily putting our hands on them, but putting more information out there the way y'all doing. People need to, do it in their own manner.
Facts. That's true.
Yeah, I'm going to yield on that one because I'm about to get super passionate and irritated. like this for real, this real life, man. Moor's ready to die about this. Not ready to die, will die about this. More for real. Like, I just don't get how dudes playing around, like playing in the temple. Look, man, I know Moor's like this. My man going to the temple, they ready to hand it over to him just because he come in with the black turban tied right. They think he's somebody. You know what I mean? They already telling him, hey, we know y'all knew Moor is coming to push us to the back. They already know what's popping. They already know prophecy is happening. Moors is actually linking up out here like brothers, but we got a couple, brothers that try to slide in, but they sour and they get weeded out quick. But again, I got to give thanks to GS for, just putting the classes out there, showing us who. Because then everybody that come in there talking foul to you, I end up running into them, having a conversation with them in some kind of way. Just ran into that last fool, Devon. Like, what is y'all problem with this Discord? It's that ego. Everybody want to be somebody instead of being themselves. They want to be this dude, be that dude. It's like, why don't you be you? Like, you are specifically for you. Nobody not really trying to do that. Everybody, like, they done trained us pretty much to want this fame and glory and be that man, had this, had that. That's like, play it out. Nobody not getting rid of that old stuff. It's like that computer tip, You're going to have a new computer, and you're going to load it up with stuff. Now you get new program. You got to delete those old files. Delete don't mean keep. People using the same platform and then trying to put more science in it. You cannot pour new wine into old glasses. You drink it out of dirty glass. You about to get all that filth right back in you. So you never getting it cleansed.
Straight up.
Again, I'm going to go ahead and yield the floor. Because we talked for too long. Took everybody's time up.
It's all good. Appreciate your add on, bro. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, I will say, I never been on those bills, but I heard about those bills, and you must definitely go in.
hey, GS, I swear I was gonna hit you up one day. Like, look, I'm gonna sneak you in there and let you get a little peek and see what we do.
Word.
Islam, boy.
We'll build peace. Peace, miss.
Peace, bro. Travel well. All right. Cool.
Islam.
Good stuff. Islam. Moor's building, adding on, and that's what it's about, man. That's definitely what it's about. So I appreciate that, Good work, bro. Good work. With that being said, we're going to take our next caller. Caller 206-75. You're live. Are you with us, fam?
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Salam.
Peace, Moor.
Welcome, salam. Peace, sis.
Yeah, always good broadcast. I just wanted to touch on the music part of what I think you guys are talking about, the main subject, because, unfortunately, I'm one of those people who maybe missed the whole hip-hop bandwagon. I mean, I listened to Nas growing up, no doubt, but, I mean, that was about it, So beyond that, I mean, I listened to some Jamaican artists, but never really got really into the hip-hop during that era. But listening to Nas, it was funny how the other day, well, not the other day, but a few months ago, I had some people at my house, and we would listen to distant relatives, right? I had the album playing, and my daughter's just running down all the lines. And everybody's like, dang, she knows all the words. And I'm like, this is all she's been listening to since she's been alive, you know, like, and my daughter's like, yeah, my mom's been listening to the same music forever, because I'm really selective when it comes to, like, you can't just come over and put on your iPod and start bumping some, like, that's going to get turned off, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to affect my consciousness with that ratchetness. And so it's interesting to me, the music, how it really has came and just took our people's minds somewhere where it's so hard to get it back. When I think about people who I know who say they're conscious and they're, you know, whatever, conscious of their bloodline, but then you get around them and they listen to 2 Chainz and they're listening to, you know, whatever. I don't even know most of these guys. It all sounds the same. I'm like, what? Like, you going right back to your lower self every time you play that, every time you vibrate on that frequency, you're just messing up I don't care how much you study. If you're getting in your car and you're bumping that stuff, and maybe if you have a certain lens, I think some people can listen to music with a certain lens if they are very strong in their, you know, understanding of some things. But a lot of stuff, that stuff takes you away. Next thing you know, man, you want to go, you know, do some extra stuff. And it's not even conscious, because that's how powerful music is that it can take you. I remember watching this documentary called 20 Feet from Stardom. You guys probably have seen it. And the woman in the movie was talking about how music is so powerful. It can make you feel happy, make you feel sad, make you think about something 15 years ago, make you think about somebody you used to be in love with or somebody that you hate, just a song, you know. So the fact that people are listening to this music and they're not really understanding how it's affecting you, and it's on a subconscious level. You don't even know why you still got that song stuck in your head that you heard on the radio 2 hours ago. You know what I mean? It's that heavy that we have to really start understanding what those beats, how they really resonate with you on a whole different frequency, especially when you know our people have been you know, into meditation and yoga and using sounds to achieve higher vibrations, and now they're using those same sounds that we, you know, created, and now they got us just wild, just like some stuff I never seen. Like, I mean, and I think because I'm so sheltered, I don't really expose myself to that type of stuff. So when I go around it, I'm like, wow, like, you guys let your kids listen to, or you let your children listen to this? Like, the children are in the room and this is what you guys are playing? Like, it's all, and the children know the words, and y'all feeling that? Like, it's interesting. But growing up listening to Nas, I told my daughter that, you know, if it wasn't for artists like Nas, I would have never even really thought outside the box. I never would have questioned things. You know, when I'm listening to Nas and I'm going to school, I'm listening to Damon Marley, and they're kicking, you know, who wrote the Quran, who wrote the Bible, you know what I mean? You're like, hold up, who did? You know what I mean? Like, so that type of stuff I never would have thought about growing up in a Christian household. I couldn't question the Bible. You get smacked. You know what I mean? You don't question the Bible when you have somebody like Nas saying, you know, these type of things. It really puts you in a mindset like, let me figure out what's really going on here. You know what I mean? So I think that, I know that Nas facilitated my awakening, made me think about things that, I think, and one of my friends had said to me one day, he's like, you're not the only one. He's like, you're not the only one that Nas touched like that. You're not the only one that Damon Marley, just them doing that album together, you're not the only one that affected in that way and brought people out of darkness into, like, hold up, you know, what's good, you know? So honor to you guys for even getting on that topic, because music is powerful. I think it's more powerful than we really realize.
Islam. And then again to go again on the same frequency of the idea of the collaboration, or bringing certain energies together to fulfill a task. You know, it's not you know, happenstance that
Exactly.
the two albums that he collaborated with somebody else to put out were two of the best albums ever. You know, on the level of you know, bridging this gap, you know, or closing the gap, making there a more unified front. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember even dealing with, you know, people from the islands and then beginning to understand that it is one blood, that we are one people, because I know growing up where people from Jamaica were here, or from, you know, another part of America were here on the mainland, they would always look at us like some type of way. So when Nas and Damon did that, they really put a message out there like, hey, this is distant relatives. You know, this is one blood, like, you know. So I even noticed how my interactions with Jamaicans changed, you know, after that. Like, it's just, yeah, it's heavy. So I appreciate you guys touching on that subject. And then I also wanted to ask a question about, well, really, it's about the name correction and really handling it as far as when you go out here and you're navigating in these work environments. Would it be your opinion to, I've been watching different people and listening to different things, so would it be your opinion to go and update, change, whatever word, I want to use correct, but I don't know if it would be the proper word, but would it be advised to correct your name as far as like at your job or in the workplace, you know, stuff like that? Would you advise that, or would you say, hey, don't be getting your national name roped into corporate activity?
That's a good question. That's a really good question, because it's aspect of really only one, because
So we're not hearing you, Miz.
Yeah, I think you're cutting out, Miz.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Hello?
You know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was saying Noble Drew Ali said, do all new business in your new name. So, you know, you can't necessarily
and I think about
exclude.
that too.
Yeah. Now, I personally.
In reality, I've been currently working there. I mean, it's an interesting situation because initially I never even considered changing my name or correcting my name at the job. I just figured, hey, you know, maybe at the next place, but I don't really plan on continuing employment at different companies. Like, I'd rather move out on my own thing. But in between time, I'm here, so I never really considered it, you know, correcting my name. I just figured, hey, you know, if I move on somewhere else, I'll enter into that place on, you know, the correct foot. Now I didn't enter into this place really in the correct way. But it's funny how people's vibes are weird towards me when they, like, we have business cards, of course, at work. Like, you know, you work for a corporation, you have business cards with your name on it. So when I give people my card, like, they have this weird look on their face. They're like looking at the card, and they look at me, and they look in the car, and it just, to them, it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? They're like, that's your name? I'm like, yeah, that's my name. And then, like, they look at me like, that's not your name. You know what I mean? Like I'm tricking them, you know? So in that aspect, I'm like, well, then maybe I need to think about this. Maybe there's something that I do need to do. You know what I mean?
Well, this is what you really need to think about. You know, what uplifts you? Being yourself, right? If you mentally corrected your appellation, not just on paper, but mentally, why wouldn't you reflect that on paper? If mentally you're there, you know, you have that right, and people have to respect that right. And, you know, against, maybe you don't want to do anything with them, really, because they're in a mind state that doesn't match your frequency. I don't know, but I'll say that, you know, you have that right, and you have the right for that right to be respected and exercised. So that's a right. you know, you can exercise. That's, but I'm like,
I mean, I know it will be no resistance as far as my employer, just because, you know, I know how to deal with these people. But for me, I'm wondering as far as dealing with corporate activity. Now then we're going to be dealing with, as you know, the IRS. We're going to be dealing with, you know, all this craziness where they say, oh, you have to have insurance to, or you're going to get tax fine, or you know, you got to do this and that. All this stuff goes into that. And then now I'm going to be dealing with these guys, and I'm going to have my national name messed up in this, to where, like, even it always resonates with me, like what Taj says, you don't have to go back and, you know, fix something that happened with this corporate name because it's not yours. But when I have my national name mixed up into it, well, I'm going to have to deal with this because this is my stuff for real. You know what I mean? So it's like maybe a lazy way of looking at it, but to me it's kind of like a camouflage, like kind of like, I don't know, a bit of wearing two hats. Like, oh, if something happened with this corporate name, you know, it's not a big deal. I can ditch that. Like, but with this right here, I can't ditch that. Like that, it has to be dealt with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's many ways to look at that. You know what I mean? You can make sure all your records are straight before you do that. Or, you know, with me personally, I couldn't do anything until I know I don't have to ask anybody the question about what I do.
So then when it comes to that, I had somebody say, like, I heard someone in a video talking about how after you do your name correction and your proclamation and you get it certified or registered mail, one of the two, they suggested registered. They actually said to get a certified copy of it from wherever you send it and use that to take to your job to have them correct your name. And I'm thinking, like, how can City of Seattle or whatever, that's where my domicile is the Wamers territory, but how can City of Seattle give me a certified, you know, like name correction, and then I take that, like, they're not government. Like, doesn't that sound kind of stupid? Like, I'm going to this non-government entity to have them say I am who I say I am and take it to my job.
Exactly.
That sounds crazy, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's why you do it for you. But at the same time, on the civic side, you can, if you will, to or want to, you know, correct your records at your job. You can do that through different processes. You know, I'm not saying, you know, you shouldn't. I'm just saying you do have that right. And I do understand the discrimination, you know, because you got to remember, if you're working for a Pilgrim Corporation, more than likely they're going to be biased once you start connecting to your ancestral. Not that they have that right to be biased. But that's a sad reality of this world, you know what I mean, in these times. So, I mean, I'm not saying you should acquiesce and not correct your records because that's how somebody else is going to feel. Because I'm like, look, if they don't feel that, then, hey, look, forget them. But I know at the same time there's things that have to do out of necessity, you know, et cetera. So I don't think natural person operating in that capacity. You know, if you feel like, you know, it's not right for you to do that at your job, in that mind state is probably not at that time. But then you might be in a mind state where you know you're right, you have enough facts to back up your position, and that's how you move. I wouldn't think until
So, like, I know sometimes when I'm listening to Taj a lot talk and a lot, well, mostly Taj, and he's like, I feel like he gives off this energy where it's like sometimes you don't really need to be doing that because you're not at that place where you need to do that. Like, people ask him about setting up a trust and stuff, and he'll be like, well, you need to study more, to where maybe you have to get to a certain place before you even do that. You can't be doing that type of stuff prematurely, you know what I mean? Like, I can't be going to my job tomorrow and talking about I need to do this name correction, but, you know, I don't even know all the facts, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like you're living a double life, almost like, you are. You know what I mean? Like, no doubt you are,
Yeah,
But
and I mean, it depends.
It's also
Go ahead, Moor.
no, I'm just gonna say that it's about the perspective that you have of it. So if your perspective is you're not the straw, no matter what you do with it, you're not that, then it's not really a double life like that. It's an appearance that it's like that, but if that's not you, if you're really the Moor, you're not the straw, then it's not really a double life like that. It would appear that it's that way, but that's not really what it is, because that second being is not you. It has nothing to do with you. You're not even a holder in due course of it. It's just an instrument that somebody created to try to put you in economic, spiritual, mental, and sometimes physical slavery. But that's only if you agree to be it, or take some type of claim of it, or be some secured party creditor of it, will apply to you. Which again goes back to what we were talking about earlier about, is slavery voluntary? Or do you have a choice?
Right, no doubt.
And the thing is also with the whole thing about what you're saying about the prematurity of people with this information is that it's more so, not doing stuff right away, because you're eventually going to find out more information that you're going to have to go back and fix the stuff that you were premature about. So opposing to have to go back and fix 50 things, settle down, take some time to detox, get this information in you, and then when you get it in you, recycle it in you a little bit, and then go out and do whatever it is, because majority of the time with the study, you answer your own questions.
Yeah.
Islam Floor, if you had anything to add.
Just gave me mad stuff to think about. No, that's I mean, even honestly, 100%, I feel like even on my own part, it may be premature just because I'm not. But the reality is, I feel like at times that sometimes the universe may be pushing me to do this because it's something that I never considered. But when I have vibrations with people where I might give someone my card, or I might tell them what they think my name is, or what the name that I'm doing business as, they give me these looks like, that's not your name. And then it's like, I'm looking mad fraudulent, but it's like, but it's not my name either. So at the time, I'm agreeing with them, like, yeah, it's not my name, but this is how I'm operating right now. But I feel kind of like, and it's funny because it didn't happen to me in the past. Like, I used to tell people what they call me, and they would just take it. But now they second look me a couple times and look at the card and then look at me, and they're just like, whoa, like, this is just interesting. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. So I feel like sometimes the universe may be in play in that respect. The vibration might have just changed, where it's like, looking kind of foolish,
Yeah, I never think that of yourself, though, because at the end of the day, they have to respect you for the eye. Yeah, and then you got to remind yourself, are you dealing with ignorant people? Because
I'm dealing with nationals. That's why they're looking at me crazy. Like, I have one colleague, like, he's from Persia. He was telling me his history, and then one day he pulled me to the side, and he's like, I know that's not really your real name. Like, what's your real name? And I'm like, man, that's my name. And he's like, no, it's not. And I was like, man. And we're at my place of business, so I'm like, hey, keep your voice down, because I don't want people, because we work with pilgrims. There's nationals, there's pilgrims, there's there's Germans, we got it all, you know what I mean? So there's people there who, you know, they're nationals. They're Kenyan, they're Persian, they're Chinese, you know what I mean? So they look at me like real strange, you know what I mean? Like real strange.
Yeah, because
you know what I mean?
Yeah, because most of them have been denationalized when they came here. They won't say it like that, but that's the fact. You know, they could come here, Aloha or something like that, and then you know they come to North America, get naturalized under the United States, and you know now they're Eloyd or something like that. So just because they've been denaturalized, if somebody tell you that you're not who you say you are, you can't.
Yo, Miz, I can't hear you.
Oh no, I was saying if somebody doesn't respect you for who you say you are, that means that they don't respect growth and development, and for that purpose, you know, I would say that you probably shouldn't be rocking with them anyway. You know what I mean? Like if they don't respect you, because I also you in a lot of us through afflictions where we to the point where we bear names that wasn't ours, and if they can't respect you giving a name back that was never yours, and saying that your appellation ain't your real name, then that means that you know they have a certain lack of respect, and you probably shouldn't be rocking with them anyway. Really, you know. So yeah, don't let anybody who doesn't understand discourage you from being who you evolved in or recognize you always been. Really, so that's different because we have some greats who have done the same thing. You know, our history, just our history. Don't let, especially. Okay, you say you're dealing with nationals, and that's their perspective.
Well, I mean, to them, to me, I look at them. I mean, it's not like I've seen their paperwork. I know one of my colleagues, I ended up seeing some of his documents just happenstance because we went on a business trip, and everyone had to present, their, identification to check into this hotel, and I noticed that he identifies as Italian, and he when he did his booking to check in, he didn't have nothing attached to him, no address or nothing. All of us else, except for the owner or the principal, she had only the zip code. So it was in Boston. So she had the Boston zip code. But the rest of us, they had put our quote unquote address on our booking. But him, they didn't do that. He just had his name, and then where it would have been his address, they had X's. So it made me think like, okay, so what is he doing? Like, how is he out here not attached to nothing, but all of us, we attached, you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe that's because he's a national. Maybe that's just the case. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that he would have to respect that as far as you and your personal life, if you allow him in or whatnot. I mean, by default, sometimes when you work with people, certain personal information gets there, but you have the right to correct your name. Period. Like I'll tell you this: don't ever let anybody, any so-called national or any person in negroid state of mind deter you from being who you know you are. Because there's never.
He wasn't telling me that my national name wasn't my name. He was telling me that my corporate name wasn't my name. Like he was like, that's really not what they call it. Like he was like, what do your parents call you? And I'm like, that's what they call me. And he's like, nah, like that's not your name. Like that's someone else's name. So it was like a interesting conversation that we had.
Right. In that regard, more than likely he's correct if you was bearing a name that wasn't yours in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Because if you look at it, there's never been any of our people, none, I mean zero, who have effectively, who have utilized freedom effectively that didn't correct their appellation. I don't care who you name, whether it be Noble Drew Ali, El Hajj Malik, El Shabazz, or we could go to our sister Sojourner Truth, who had the same, problem with them trying to take her children. She didn't just, born Sojourner Truth. She gave back a name that she felt like wasn't hers. You know what I mean? Elizabeth Freebaum, and, corrected it to Sojourner Truth. That's what she did. And got her child back. So what I'm saying is that get our legacy as a people, there really hasn't been too much of us who was about freedom and liberation that the European name back to the European. I don't know. I'm questioning anybody who say that they have been about liberation and do that. That's the real question. So when the brother said, or when the Italian said that, your nom de guerre isn't your name, you know what I'm saying? Then, he wasn't lying. He wasn't lying.
No doubt. I mean, that we just had a really heavy build. Also, that conversation, I was like, wow. So then when we went, and it was not the same coworker who had said that to me. It was a different one. But when we had checked in and I saw his, documentation, and I saw that he didn't have nothing attached to him, he just has his, his appellation. And then I was like, wow, like he's really free for real. And it made me think that's just how I should be moving out here. Like I shouldn't be moving like that. You know what I mean? Not to say shouldn't be, but I mean, I could be moving properly,
Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, you'd have the right to correct your appellation and do business in any appellation or so-called name that you choose. That is a birthright. Anybody deters you from that, then, just look within. Look, because at the end of the day, what do we really exist off of is the I am. We use names to try to identify. Like we call birds birds and we call cats cats, but keep in mind they don't call themselves that. They just naturally exist. But we call them. And that natural I am state of mind, it really doesn't matter. It matters, but it doesn't. You don't let that deter you from what you feel comfortable with your existence, because it's birthright, and that's a fact.
Respect, Moorish, respect.
No doubt, indeed. And that's in all areas of civic life. It's more than enough information back. Name changes everything. So, for sure. But just be comfortable with whatever you do. That's the main thing. If you don't feel comfortable with it, I don't think anybody else would. So, be true to yourself and who you've evolved into. And that's the jewel, and
Yep. Peace, Moors. I yield the floor, and much love and respect to you both.
Peace, sis. This is Ron, mother.
All right. I want to thank the sister for calling in. That's always a beautiful thing. When the sisters come through inquiring and sparking conversation, we appreciate that. But we're going to move on to our next caller because we have a little under a half an hour left. So, caller 111. Brother Balanzi, is that you, bro?
Peace, Ms. Rael, and peace, Brother Kujo. How y'all doing, man?
What's up, boy? Peace and love, bro. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, and peace to all the Moors out there that's listening. I like that topic you talked about with Nas, It's funny that you say that because he comes from that background that I come from. We all been around in the same hood. We grew up somewhere, but he's a little younger than me, but I can see it in him from way back up until now. He has transgressed, in his life to get to where he at. And I got to give him props, man. He came a long way being with Large Professor, you know what I'm saying, from Main Source, that put him on the map. And there was cats that I know he looked up to where the signs was always there from way back dealing with, if you know these other artists, way before he even came out. Because there's two brothers that I grew up with that was from my hood out in Queens, And I think you heard them. They called Two Kings in a Cipher. And they made this record Moving on them. And they gave you a symbol in a video. If you watch the video, you'll see Army Raw with the fez on. That's right there showing you who you are as a Moor. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people probably didn't peep it, but if you look back at that video, right there, he's telling you and showing you this is who you are. And that's like an eye-opening and a mind-awakening to who we really is. Then they got another brother called Shabazz the Last Disciple. Death be the penalty. Watch that video. He giving you science and symbolisms in his video, and he got the fez in that one. And that's way back in the 80s. They was showing you these videos. But, you know, it's good to see that y'all take note to that Nas from that Queensbridge. Because over there, they all got a little bit of that stuff in them because they all got that 7 in them. You know what I'm saying? Because they got a train that rides up and down over there that's like the Circle 7, called the 7 train. You know what I'm saying? So that's like a powerful energy force all around that whole environment, going all the way back to Flush, called the Wastelands, where you got cats like Royal Flush and all of them. You know what I'm saying? And you got Cool G Rap. You know what I'm saying? I grew up with all these cats. And Cool G Rap, on the low, nobody never knew that he's a Muslim. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of keys going on with cats from out of Queens.
Yeah.
Come up with that.
Coming to America.
Huh?
And coming to America, they was princes and kings, and they was like, well, where we going to find the queens at? In Queens. You already know.
You already know, man. So it's funny y'all touched on him, and that Nas came up to this point right now where he made this song all of a sudden, finally. And he was always around his main little man called no other, and I know you know him real well, AZ. You know AZ be dropping the knowledge.
My gosh, bro.
You see the circle all right there. Even though he didn't get his dues, but AZ was the realest one that put it on the map with all his articulate talking.
Yeah.
And you know they all got it from the legendary, huh?
Yeah, no, I was saying, keep in mind he had an album called Asiatic.
There you go.
Like A and then the last letter Z added. But we knew what that was, and that was straight fire. So, you know.
He was sending signals to the Moors. He was telling you, get back into yourself, your Asiatic self. But all of them, you know, they all came from under the other brother, too. You know, Nas really came from under, if you ever heard of this rap brother from the bridge, Tragedy. Even he dropped jewels. Intelligent hoodlum. Arrest the president.
Arrest the president.
You know what he was saying? He already knew he was the Moor. He knew he was the Moor coming out the bridge. And he was out before Nas came out on the scene. So you know Nas is looking up to him. Like, yeah, he's on to something. And then I'm going to drop a powerful jewel to y'all that I never shared yet. That little Nas is in a video that I'm in that brought him into the world. And that video y'all could go check out is called Large Professor. Everybody know who Extra Pro is. It's called Hanging Out. In that video, very carefully, you'll see him bringing Nas into the world and introducing him into the world, making his first rap song. And you'll see me in there with the Kango bopping with the gazelles on in front of the bodega. You know what I'm saying?
Right on, brother Belanzi. That's what's good.
Go check that video out and you'll see me. You'll see me in there. I'm just hanging out, if you remember that song.
Oh, yeah.
All right?
All right, Noble. Peace and love, brother.
I
Appreciate you.
Share that with y'all. Keep the information being spirit out there into the universe so we can keep waking up these unconscious more. You know what I'm saying? Because it's needed. Even though they slowly waking up, they need to be waking up more so.
Indeed, bro. Absolutely. Thank you.
And one more to throw out there, just because you brought up Large Professor and main source, you just remember Sir Scratch and K-Cuts from out here, just in case people didn't know.
Canada. So, two DJs is from Canada.
We've been unified out here.
No
it's
doubt.
not a game.
You already know.
Out here.
See how far back that is? That's so way back then, in the 80s. And now we in 2018.
Right on.
All world, man. And the Moors are coming back because the Moors always been here. It's all about waking them back up into your consciousness. You know what I'm saying? That's why they got symbolism floating around. So the unconscious Moors need to catch on and catch on quick. You know what I'm saying? Because your ancestors is right here. You are the ancestors. All you doing is getting reawoken back to your greatness. That's all.
Exactly. Exactly. Yo, peace and love. Belanzi, we appreciate you adding on tonight, bro.
We
have one more caller left, and we highly thank you.
I yield the floor. Let the next man come up and shine.
Got
all right?
it.
Until
peace
then,
and love, Islam.
Peace and love.
Peace and love, Noble Belanzi. All right.
You already know. One love.
Peace, more.
One love.
One love.
Absolutely. That was a classic, too. That being said, caller 320-309. You're live on the air, fam. You with us?
Islam. Islam, Grand Sheikh Cujo, Islam, Brother Miz. I'm really enjoying the topic tonight on Sons of Allah. Very interesting topic. This Inyan Idmut RVBey, Minnesota territory, and I just wanted to briefly add on. You had a sister called in, about her name correction, and I know it can be frustrating, especially when you're coming into knowledge of yourself and you have a desire, of course, that you want to be yourself. You want to stand on your square. You want to say who you are. You want to proclaim who you are. You want to be who you are. And I certainly understand the frustration that you can encounter, especially the foreigners operating here when you're dealing in employment or business, what have you. Sometimes you have keep in mind, of course, we all know that the modern European is a foreigner himself, but you have other foreigners in addition to that who they come here and they play this whole naturalization game. And these people, I hope the sister is still on the line by chance, and if she's listening, you have foreigners that are playing a naturalization game, the Modern European Foreigners Corporation. And a lot of these people come, they have a nationality, they have a home, and they were willing to relinquish that to come here and play the naturalization game with a corporation that exists in name only on paper. And so, sister, if you're out there, I can understand how frustrating that can be, because these people are playing within the parameters of a fraudulent construct. And your Aboriginal indigenous Moor in full life being herself, dealing with this type of fraudulent construct with foreigners in furtherance of that same construct. And so, don't be discouraged. Just be who you are. I deal with it from time to time myself. not too long ago, I went to a motel and was asked for ID, and I showed him my national ID card. He said he wanted ID. I said, that is ID. You know, he's talking about something like a driver's license. And I said, that's not ID. You asked for ID. This is ID. And so he didn't want to honor it. And so I said, well, okay, fine. I moved on. And I went to a bigger motel, more reputable motel, and modern European woman behind the counter showed her my national ID. Fine, no problem. And so it was to touch on what Ms. had said to the sister. You know, when people don't want to respect you or your national political status, what they're telling you that it's best if you not even deal with them if they can't respect you for who you are.
Facts.
You're telling somebody your appellation, and they tell you that's not it. And you're telling this person your appellation, and you have an ID to reflect that sameness.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and so I just wanted to just briefly add on, because I know how frustrating that can be, especially when you're eager to truly be who you know you are, who you're clear about being. I know how frustrating it can be dealing with these clueless people. You know, but at the same token, they've been accustomed to us not being ourselves for so long. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I wanted to add, brothers. I don't, you know, if you can possibly get another call in, that's cool. But peace and love to the forum. Great show, great topic, and I'm going to yield the floor on that.
Indeed, we appreciate that,
love,
bro.
Peace and love.
Peace and love, Noble. All right, so that's what it is. So that was our last caller for the night. I'll end with this, bro. Last night I went back to class for the first time in some months, and it was interesting. It was a unique experience like no other for me, because I don't know why, but it was a certain brother. We was having a conversation. We was building on camera for a minute, and the brother came up to me, and you know, he was like, "Oh, you a Moor?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a Moor." He's like, "Nah, you a black man." I'm like, "Man, I ain't no black man. Like, I'm a Moor." No, real talk. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause it was zone. We was already in the zone. I'm telling you, we was in the zone. But yo, Cujo, the beauty in this situation was this, right? I'm like, well, you know, why do you think? What about me makes you think I'm black? Is it the hat I have on? Is it the shirt I have on? Is it complexion? Like, why would you think I'm black? And you know, he didn't answer the question because of course, he couldn't. When I said, well, what's your nationality? And he said it was Nigerian. And it happened. It was just divinely timed like this. It was also a brother at the class who had obtained my book. You know what I mean? And he was asking me to sign it. So I'm signing the book while this conversation is going on. Now, he already had read the book, but he's asking me to sign the book for him, right? And shout out to brother Yaqub L. And he was like, it was a unique moment for me because this is the first time I had on camera like someone who studied my literary works or exhibitions or references, and right on camera, I mean, he schooled this brother who was claiming to be Nigerian, but claiming that he thought I was a black man, and I really don't think he meant offense. He just never spoke to Moors like us to break it down for him. And the experience was unique because it was like, oh shit, I'm actually recording a student teaching from my book, teaching another Moor who think he's a nigger or Nigerian. You know what I'm saying? This was from, both of his parents was from Mexico, and he was born in, you know, North America here, you know, so he doesn't have certain issues or whatnot, but he was born here, and he started ripping them straight from my book, bro. I was like, yo, this is a beautiful sight. I really appreciate that. So I say when you put in the work and you put it out there, You never know who you touching, who you reaching, and they might know who you are. You know what I'm saying? And be able to teach others based off of the work you put in and the work you put out. So I say that anybody who is inspired, you know what I mean, put your work out there for whatever it's worth, because, you know, it will visit you. The rewards will visit you, even if it's not just pecuniary. You know what I'm saying? Like, to be able to say, yo, oh, wow, somebody who studied what I put out is teaching what I put out in front of me. How ill is that? You know what I mean? To somebody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just like the illest 360. You know what I mean? It was the realest 360. So, you know, shout out to MHHS, Moorish Heritage and History School, Wednesday classes. Yeah, in the flesh. Shout out to Sister Standing on Law that will be going on this Sunday at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And, you know, you, Cujo, King and Moors collectively, specifically what you do on the MC tip, you know, whether it be just teaching or you got beats to rhymes, you know. I highly appreciate what you do. Shout out to all the Moors who know their Moors and everybody who've called in tonight and who've ever pressed the Mantis lens. Even if it's that footage isn't out yet, we're working, we're cooking. So we appreciate you. And, you know, I just, you know, I know it's a new era of time, and this is halftime. It just showed me that for this third and fourth quarter, we about to go hard. You know what I mean? And we about to go super hard. Not that we haven't been, but if this is what I'm seeing at halftime, I know we got some work to put in third and fourth quarter of this year. So merry and happy and, you know, blissful and jovial summer solstice to all the family out there. You know, reminds you it's just basically like the sun in retrograde for 3 days. So take your time, be still, or take your time and put things into action if you've already taken time. You know, put those things into action now so that you're in tune with universal movement. And, you know, we just highly appreciate you all. So that's what I have to say in closing. We'll be back again every third Thursday of every month. You know, we'll be back here on Sons of Allah, but every Tuesday of every week, we have the 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, MHHS Blog Talk Radio, Principles of Nationality and Action. Tune in if you haven't. If you have to catch the information on the fly, again, you could go to Blog Talk Radio, MHHS Blog Talk Radio, and check it out on there. Or you could please, you know, as well visit our brother Najib L's YouTube page and drop your vote or opinion or, you know, like or dislike on his page to let us know what you feel about our presentations on here, man. And with that being said, I yield the floor, you know. And big shout out to you, Cujo. Islam, anything you want to say in closing, bro?
Peace and love to you, Moor, for everything that you're doing. Of course, you know, RVBey Publications and MHHS family, students and faculty, Islam to everybody, especially the students, the studiers. Don't forget the new channel, Canaan Land Moors 2. Make sure you subscribe to the new channel. We're trying to get back up to our 10,000 on that channel. So spread the word, Canaan Land Moors 2. Yes. And also the new album should be dropping momentarily. It looks like July. The new album is The Alchemist. It's going to be a double album. Two sides, The Baconist and The Alchemist. The two sides. So we're going to be going in for Iron Cheek 7. So just be on the lookout for that. And we're also looking at probably doing online listening party.
Word.
That's what's in the works. So, you know, just remember we put it out there first and be on the lookout for that one. So Islam to everybody, peace and love to all Moors worldwide, honors to the Prophet and Garvey, and praise due to Allah. And again, give thanks to the sons of Allah and MHHS for the platform.
Absolutely. You know what? One more thing in closing, and this is a question, just for those Moors who might have summer travel plans. Do you want to, as of now, share the new location of where you'll be of the temple, or is that you want to reserve that for a later date? Or
Yeah, because by next Sons of Allah we should be in the building, so we'll wait. But just so Moors know, if you haven't heard, we're going to be moving the temple, expanding our location to cater to the 5 principals, caterers. We're going to have a little section for them at the temple. The quote-unquote the kitchen section is going to be theirs to do their stuff that they do. We're going to be doing our museum and bookstore, DVD store, etc., as well as in the future some type of study lounge for Moors to use like a library. So that's what's in the works, right? So we're making moves, and again, thank all the Moors for their support over the years, because we wouldn't be Canaan Land Moors if it wasn't for the people supporting. So peace and love to all.
Indeed. Peace and love to all. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all soon. Salam.
Say, tell me how you came to get such a Roman name as that. Well, as I understand, I'm Cassius Marcellus Clay VI, and my great-great-grandfather was a Kentucky slave, and he was named after some great Kentuckian. Well, Cassius Marcellus Clay is a great name in Kentucky. And really, where he was from or where it was all originated, I couldn't tell you. But since I've reached a little fame in boxing, most people want to know where I'm from and where did I get that name. But really, I haven't really checked on it, so I see.
When it comes to safety, nothing is more important than your vehicle's brakes. If it's hard to stop or you hear squealing or grinding noises during braking, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts.